mukhlisan, which is sincere. Here we have, four of the seven conditions of La ilaha illallah. All of these conditions, there are four of them which run in a sequence. So the first one is ilm. You must have knowledge of the kalima La ilaha illallah. This comes first, obviously, and there's a particular sequence that they go through. So first of all, you have to have knowledge of what you're professing, the meaning of what you're professing. Number two, you must be so this is not enough to make a person a Muslim, because there are many non-Muslims who know the meaning of the kalima La ilaha illallah, right? There are many Orientalists, there are many non-Muslims who know what it means to say La ilaha illallah. Christians know what it means, Jews know what it means. Yeah, knowledge itself does not enter you into Islam. There has to be something additional to that, right? So mere knowledge itself does not equate to Islam. Many of the non-Muslims know the meaning of La ilaha illallah. Iblis knows the meaning of La ilaha illallah. He is not a Muslim, right? The pagan Quraysh knew the meaning, did not enter them into Islam. So ilm is one condition. That's why there is not only one. That's why it's not just one condition. There are many conditions which define for us what is the genuine belief that is acceptable to Allah, by which a person enters into Islam genuinely. So we start with ilm. Then not only do you have to have knowledge, like as in you understand what these words mean, La ilaha illallah, but you have to have conviction that they are true. You have to have certainty that the meaning of these words are actually true, that this is the truth, there is a truth, and that this is the truth. Right? So this is now certainty about the truth. So you have to have yaqeen. Now if a person was to say, okay, I know what it means, I know what you're telling me. What you're telling me is that there's nothing in the created things that deserves to be worshipped, because all these things are created. And the one who created them, only he deserves to be worshipped. This is what you are telling me. And yes, I understand that. But that does not mean he actually believes it is true. Does not mean that he is convinced that this is the truth. He could accept that that's what the meaning is, but he could say, well, actually, no, well, he could be worshipping other things. And, so mere knowledge itself does not equate to Islam or belief or iman. So next he has to have certainty that this is the truth. It is the truth. This now is yaqeen, certainty. That's the second condition that follows. However, having certainty still does not enter you into Islam, because you can be convinced of the truth of something but choose not to abide by it. Right? A person knows and is convinced that smoking is harmful to his body. And he's convinced, so he's got knowledge and he's convinced. But does knowledge and conviction stop him from smoking? The answer is no. The answer is no. And so just because someone knows and understands and has conviction in the meaning of the kalima does not enter them into Islam until they add a third condition. And that third condition is qabul. Qabul. Qabul means inward acceptance. Inward acceptance that you are obligated to abide by the requirements of this statement. Right? Until you accept inwardly that I know what this means, I have knowledge of what this means, I have conviction that it is true, and I am under obligation, I accept that I am under obligation to act in accordance with the requirements of this statement. Right? That I must act upon the pillars, I must pray, I must fast, I must obey the messenger, I must obey Allah. Until a person does not make qabul inwardly, then this does not enter him into Islam, right? So you have to accept that you are obligated to abide by the requirements of this kalima. So you see, many people of disbelief, they don't accept, they don't have qabul. Inwardly in their hearts, there's no qabul. They'll say, yes, I know what this means, I know what you're telling me, la ilaha illallah, and I'm convinced it's the truth, yes, but I cannot let go of my family traditions. So there's no qabul here, right? Or I can't let go of my sins and my vices. I can't give up my alcohol. I can't give up my, lusts and desires and whatever else, right? And so he's not willing to make qabul inside, and so therefore this is disbelief. This does not count as iman. This is the nature of the disbelief of Fir'aun. It's the nature of the disbelief of Iblis, because arrogance, right? Arrogance is stopping you from qabul, from acceptance. And likewise, it's the disbelief of the Yahud, the arrogance. They knew the truth, but they didn't act upon it. So you must have qabul, acceptance, and then for this qabul to be valid, then there must be inqiyad. Inqiyad is compliance, inward and outward compliance, which means that you must actually comply. You must actually comply with the requirements of La ilaha illallah. And so this now begins in the heart. In the heart there is like a feeling of compliance that you, like, let me give you an illustration of this. So if you imagine that one person gives another person £1,000 as a loan, right? So when it comes back to paying back the loan, if the person denies he ever received the loan, this is what we call juhud. This is called like rejecting it upon knowledge. Like, you know full well you took the loan, now you are denying that you took the loan. This is just juhud, right? But if a person was to say, yes, I accept you loan me the money, and I accept that I'm obligated to pay you back, right? This now is qabul, this now is acceptance, right? But then, just because he accepts that he has to pay that loan back, does not mean that he's like complying, that he's willing to actually give it. So in his heart there must also be a willingness and a compliance to want to give it back. This is what we mean by, inqiyad, to actually comply, So there's qabul and then there's inqiyad, right? Otherwise the person could say, yes, I accept, I'm obligated to give it to you, I accept that, and I accept that's binding upon me. This is qabul now. But he can still say, but I'm not giving it to you because I don't like you, right? So he can refuse to make inqiyad, refuse to comply with what he needs to do, to comply in terms of his obligation. So not until you add inqiyad, compliance, to the previous three, is your iman, or is your entry into Islam actually valid. There must be inqiyad. And so by inqiyad, what we mean by this is that a person, inwardly, he has this feeling of, he has this submission and compliance, right? And this leads him to outward obedience, that he actually complies, right? Otherwise, we know that the qabul that he made before, it cannot be genuine, or there's some arrogance or something there, right? So inqiyad is necessary. So all of these four, they run in a sequence. Knowledge of the meaning, certainty in that meaning that it is the truth, accepting that one is obligated to comply, and then actually complying inwardly and outwardly, right, with what this statement requires from you. Now, after this, there are three other conditions And these three other conditions, they basically separate genuine belief from spurious belief, from false belief. And they are first of all, sidq, which is truthfulness. And truthfulness, this condition eliminates the hypocrite. So the person who is a hypocrite, he's just pretending to be a believer, but inwardly he's just, disbelieves. And the only reason he's complying outwardly is to protect his worldly interests. Right? I'm going to pretend to be a Muslim and pretend to pray and whatever else, but inwardly I'm only doing it because I don't want to lose my wealth, my status, my position, and whatever else. I'm just protecting my worldly affairs. Right? So this is something that is not genuine belief. And sidq is a condition to, so that it's clear to us that the hypocrites are not from the people of Iman, are not from the people of genuine belief, and they're not from the people of La ilaha illallah, even though they outwardly appear to be as such. Right? And then we also have, after this, ikhlas, which is sincerity. Sincerity. So sincerity, this is obviously a person has to be seeking the face of Allah, has to be genuine, has to be sincere, and his declaration of La ilaha illallah has to be only to seek the pleasure of Allah, the reward of Allah, and not for any other consideration or motivation. Like, for example, showing off or wanting to be heard, have a reputation. Isn't this a pious person? Isn't this a person a good reciter? Isn't this person a very knowledgeable person? All of these are things which play with a person's intentions and motivations, and so these have to be absent. If the majority of a person's actions are plagued with these kind of this showing off, this is a sign of hypocrisy. Sign of hypocrisy. It can't be genuine belief. And then finally, it's muhabba, which is love. A person's love should be for Allah and for His Messenger, and for the people of La ilaha illallah. So, for example, if you claimed to be, and we can actually give actual examples of this in real life to show you how people's iman can be in jeopardy. So, for example, let's say you have two countries, and one country is a Muslim country, and it's bordered with a country of pagans, mushrikun, let's say Hindus, for example. And let's say that there is a war or a conflict that takes place between this Muslim nation and this, idol worshipping nation, whose inhabitants mostly are idol worshippers, whose government are idol worshippers. So now, if you are a Muslim living in that land of idol worshippers, from the conditions of your iman, of this kalima, is that your love should be for the people of this kalima, for the people of this kalima, for the people of Tawheed. Now, if you love that your nation that you live in, which is an idol worshipping nation, and you want them to defeat the other nation, which is a Muslim nation, and you want them to be overcome, this now is from the nullifiers of Islam. Right? If you want those who are from the mushrikun to have, if you want them to have dhuhur, you want them to overwhelm and overcome, and then obviously there's a detail or a distinction to it. You could want them to overcome the other nation because it's your nation and you like it and you were born in that country and you were raised in that country, or you could want them to overwhelm because you want this nation of idol worshippers to overwhelm the other nation. This whole thing now enters into very, very dangerous territory, because we are coming to these conditions of La ilaha illallah, and from them is muhabba, which means to love Allah more than you love anything else, to love his messenger more than anything else, and to love the people of Iman, to love the people of this kalima, and to ally with them, right? So all of these things enter into the meaning of into this condition of mahabba, love. So as you can see, all of these conditions, they are derived from the book and the sunnah, and they help us to distinguish genuine Islam, Iman, declaration of the kalima, from that which is not valid, from that which is not genuine. And it's crucial to know and understand these affairs, because without knowing these borders and these boundaries and these conditions, what ends up happening is that the handholds of Islam disappear and everything becomes mixed and confused, and you can't tell what is what anymore. And this is why you see, like today, you see so many people appearing on the scene, Muslim figures, Muslim spokesmen, Muslim politicians, and you see, for example, you'll see a politician in America wanting to get into the Congress because they start off by wanting to argue for example, Palestinian rights. And then when they get into that position, next thing you know, that they are calling for, LGBT and this and that and whatever else, and all the rest of the things that come with it, right? So now what's happened to your qabul and inqiyad, right? Because and then so people become blinded by the fact that they might be fighting for the rights of an oppressed people, but then they are falling into nawaqid, they're falling into things which nullify Islam. So when you don't pay attention to these issues, you'll see that the distinction between iman and kufr, iman, belief and disbelief, is lost. And when that is lost, then the deen, is lost. And all of this brings trials and tribulations upon the people. So this was the condition of ikhlas, sincerity. This brings us to hadith number 39, and this is from Abdullah bin Umar radiyallahu anhu, from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who said, "Man shahida an la ilaha illallah dakhala al-jannah." Very simple, straightforward. From Abdullah bin Umar radiyallahu anhu, who said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Whoever testifies that none has a right to be worshipped except Allah will enter into paradise." So this is the same as all of the previous hadith, there's not much to comment upon that. And this brings us to the final hadith, hadith number 40, from Mu'adh bin Jabal radiyallahu anhu, who said that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Man kana akhiru kalamih min ad-dunya la ilaha illallah dakhala al-jannah." The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, whoever's final words in the world as he departs from the world, whoever's final words are la ilaha illallah, he will enter into paradise. So this hadith indicates a number of things. First of all, that the one who leaves this world and he dies upon la ilaha illallah, he is from the people of paradise. He is from the people of paradise, meaning eventually he will be from the people of paradise, even if he's a sinful person, even if he is punished first. And this is why it is recommended that when a person is dying, that you encourage them to say la ilaha illallah. You don't sit there reading the Quran to them, because this is innovation, as many people do, because the time for receiving admonition from the Quran has already passed. This person's on the deathbed. Why are you reciting the Quran to them now? Right? You encourage them to say la ilaha illallah, so that these are their final words. That's what you're supposed to do. And so these kind of innovations that we have amongst people, amongst in our cultures and traditions, of sitting there and reading the Quran to this is a bid'ah. This is innovation. It is incorrect. You are supposed to do something that's going to benefit that person. That person cannot act anymore. The time for receiving admonition has gone. Right now, at the point of death, as the person is dying, he needs to say La ilaha illallah. Right? And that's why it's an encouragement for a person to encourage a dying person to say La ilaha illallah, as we saw in the previous hadith. And in fact, this is a specific command. لَقِّنُوا مَوْتَاكُمْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ, as we see in a hadith, which is to encourage your dead, those who are dying, to say La ilaha illallah. Also, we should know and understand that at the point of death, like while we are alive now, it might seem very easy to imagine that when I die, it's going to be very easy for me to say La ilaha illallah. But you see people's realities at the point of death. And there's many stories which are mentioned by which admonition is taken, or from which admonition is taken, where you see people dying on the deathbed, and no one really knows what a person's heart is really attached to. We don't know. We just see outwardly people practice, they appear to be practicing religious, but we don't really know what really inwardly what that person's really attached to. Could be a person has an infatuation with music. Could be an infatuation with following certain desires or lusts. And at the point of death, that will manifest on that person's tongue. He will want and seek out what his heart was really attached to. And that's why in many narrations, many stories that you see from the Salaf and other than them, and the scholars, they mention the cases of people who at the point of death, they were wishing, if only I had done such and such, if only I'd done such and speaking about their lusts and desires, and alcohol and whatever else, and wealth that they missed out upon, and or their love for the family which was greater than their love for Allah and His Messenger. And so the thing that they're concerned about is the family, rather than the kalima and saying La ilaha illallah. They're bothered about something else, the inheritance and this and that and whatever else. And so what it means is your ability to say La ilaha illallah at the point of death returns back to what extent and what degree you actually put it into practice in your life. Right? To the degree that you actualized it in your statement, in your actions, in your ibadat, the greater you actualize this kalima, then the easier it will be for you to say it at the point of death. And the more it was just simply something you said, and you were neglectful in your ibadat and in the all the other affairs, it was going to become harder and harder and harder and harder for you to say it. Whatever your heart was attached to, that's what you're going to seek at the point of death. And so that's why the person who is given success at the point of death is the one who was from its people, he abided by it, and he actualized it in his life. Right? So this is something to be aware of. Also from this hadith, al-a'malu bil khawatim, as we've said, a person, his fate is sealed by whatever he died upon, whatever his final, affair was. And that's why it's for a person to die upon the kalima, a person will enter into paradise. So this really brings us to an end of this book, and we covered many issues in this book. We covered the meaning of the kalima La ilaha illallah, what it actually means, what you are testifying to. We looked at the conditions throughout the book, the various conditions. We summarized them today. We looked at the issue of Iman. What is Iman? Iman is not just belief. Iman is statement of the tongue, and Iman is action as well. And it increases and it decreases, and the believers vary with each other with respect to the levels of their Iman. We covered that issue as well. We also explained the difference between this kalima La ilaha illallah It doesn't just mean to believe Allah exists. This is not what the messengers were sent for. Nobody has ever denied Allah exists, except from a very small number of people, and even then they were inwardly convinced, but they were just arrogant outwardly. Nor is it just to believe Allah exists and He's the creator, the provider, the sustainer, and only He is the creator, provider, sustainer. This is not Tawheed either. Tawheed that we have been ordered with is none has the right to be worshipped except Allah alone, which is uluhiyya. And this is what the messengers call to. So we'll bring our lesson there for today to an end, and this is the end of this treatise. So inshallah ta'ala, we probably begin a new series of lessons, and as for the book or the materials, we'll announce it in due course through the messages that you get, inshallah. And we'll try to start that a week today, next week inshallah ta'ala, if not the week after. So I think the message should go out into the, whatever we decide inshallah.